We're launching into a new edition of CNN 10, and we're happy to have you aboard. I'm your captain, Carl Azus, and the reason we're making this sound like a flight is because we're about to take flight with a report about a space launch that's scheduled for later this month. It'll carry 2 astronauts to the International Space Station. That's been done many times before. What's different this time around is how they'll get there. They'll be launching from American soil for the first time since 2011. They'll be launching in a newly designed spacecraft for the first time since 1981, and they'll be launching aboard a SpaceX capsule for the first time ever. SpaceX is a private company that has received billions of dollars from NASA. It's been able to carry out space missions much less expensively than the U.S. government agency. The SpaceX capsule is named the Crew Dragon, and if everything goes according to schedule, May 27th will be the first time it carries people into orbit. Until 2011, the Space Shuttle was the vehicle NASA used to get people from A to beyond. It was a large winged ship attached to giant rocket boosters. The Crew Dragon looks more like the Russian Soyuz capsule that's been used to launch NASA's astronauts since the Space Shuttle program shut down. According to Space.com, NASA pays $86 million for every astronaut who launches aboard the Russian Soyuz. It'll cost around $55 million for each astronaut aboard the SpaceX Crew Dragon.
Ignition, liftoff, 5, aim high.
The dawn of a new era of spaceflight is upon us. For the first time since the shuttle program ended 9 years ago, NASA will launch astronauts into space from American soil. But this time, NASA isn't running the entire show. It partnered with SpaceX, the private company that designed, built, and operates the Crew Dragon spacecraft. If the upcoming flight is successful, Crew Dragon will become the first commercially built ship to ever carry humans to the International Space Station. Veteran NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken will be those humans. Their mission is called Demo 2. The Demo 2 mission is hardly the first time you're putting your life on the line. You've been to space twice, you were a test pilot before that, but humans have never flown in this spacecraft before. So is this mission inherently riskier than others?
From a first flight standpoint, certainly there might be some greater quantifiable risk to some degree, but probably no different than any other space flight that we have flown humans on before.
Certainly after having a child and being a father, there is a different level of preparation, both to share the mission with my son, which is something I'm super excited to have the opportunity to do, of course, but certainly there is risk associated with a mission like this as we go forward. But I do want him to know that it's a mission that I feel strongly about, and I want him to be proud of his father.
For years, the U.S. has been paying Russia upwards of $80 million per seat to get U.S. astronauts to the International Space Station. So what is the significance of bringing these missions back to American soil?
I think there's a lot of significance, Rachel, to bringing these missions back to American soil. First, as you alluded to, kind of an alternative to the Soyuz solution that's out there, which gives us both an alternative for some political reasons, but also some robustness if we should find a problem with the Soyuz vehicle and need an alternative. But as an American, I'm just proud of what we'll be able to accomplish and fly again on an American rocket from American soil.
Now, you and Doug have known each other for ages. You were even at each other's weddings. So does that relationship, how does that help you in the cockpit, that history?
We're kind of at the point in our experience, whether it's flying in the T-38 or executing in a SpaceX simulation or approaching and docking to the International Space Station, where we, in addition to finishing each other's sentences, we can predict almost by body language what the person's opinion is or what their next action is going to be.
For us, as test pilots, Bob and I, if you told us when we were students at test pilot school that we would get an opportunity to fly the first flight of a spaceship, I think we would have told you were crazy.
Now, Doug, the space shuttle had over 2,000 switches and circuit breakers, and Crew Dragon has touchscreens and far fewer switches. And if all goes to plan, the flight will be mostly automated. So does that make your job of flying this thing a little bit easier, this new generation of spacecraft?
Well, I think in some ways it does, because you can kind of you're more of a monitor of all the systems, and you're not using all your brain power to actually fly the vehicle. Now, that being said, the vehicle has manual capability in several phases, and we will certainly test that out.
Liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis.
Now, Doug, you piloted the last shuttle mission back in 2011. You're now slated to be the first commander of its replacement, the Crew Dragon. There's something quite poetic about that. So has the significance of that sunk in for you?
It's hard to believe in some ways. You know, when somebody says it, you're like, well, that can't possibly be me, but it looks like it's going to be. So it's certainly a huge honor to even be, to get to fly to space one time, but to be, on the last shuttle flight and then the first flight since then is only in America, I guess I would say.
10-second trivia. Which of these islands would you find in the Caribbean? Nevis, Majorca, New Caledonia, or Isabella Island? The West Indies is where you'll find the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. And if you're looking for a virtual beach vacation, and who wouldn't settle for one of those right now if we can't have the real thing, sit back and soak up these images of Nevis. It was a British colony until it gained independence in 1983. It's less than 50 square miles in area, but what it lacks in land, it makes up for in history, beauty, sun, and sunny disposition.
Relaxed and romantic, luxurious and lush, the Caribbean island of Nevis is an idyllic vacation spot.
Welcome to Nevis, the beautiful island here. Beautiful people, lovely food here, and enjoy yourself in the sun and enjoy the breeze.
Arriving by ferry from St. Kitts, the trip is 45 minutes with spectacular views of Mount Nevis and the Charlestown shoreline.
Charlestown is Nevis' small capital. There's really one main thoroughfare, Main Street, that runs through it, and it can be explored in an afternoon.
18th century stone buildings with gingerbread trim surround Independence Square and are some of the best remaining examples of colonial Caribbean architecture. For a small island, Nevis is rich in history. The first U.S. Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, was born here, and his birthplace serves as a museum of Nevis history. A few blocks away is a Jewish cemetery, preserved as an historical site, with graves dating from the 1760s.
The island is so small that you can get around the island in 30 minutes if you want to. But of course, as a visitor, you'll be taking a bit more time visiting all the spots around the island that we have to see.
On Nevis, all beaches are public. And while some visitors like the soft sand and subtle waves of Pinney's Beach, others prefer Uali Beach for the adventure of kayaking, snorkeling, or bike touring with Nevis champion triathlete Reggie Douglas. For a few hours of serenity, stroll through the 7-acre Nevis Botanical Garden, a tropical paradise of gardens, sculptures, and water features.
What's really great about Nevis is there's a real fierce commitment to preservation of the environment and retaining a sense of history that the island is imbued with.
10 out of 10. At Kentucky's Pikeville High School, there's a sort of unofficial senior superlative most likely to appear on a poster in downtown Pikeville, and all 80 seniors won it. Like so many other schools during the coronavirus pandemic, Pikeville canceled prom, graduation, sports, and senior events. So city firefighters hung posters of the graduates to honor them and their parents with a drive-through yearbook. So maybe COVID had the yearbook up, but Pikeville's moved to put the yearbook up on downtown streets made for celebrations. A way to tell seniors congratulations, because even without the sports, trips, and dances, it still shows pomp in tough circumstances. All right, let's turn the page on that and say hello to Hillcrest High School, watching today from Simpsonville, South Carolina. It's great to have the Rams online. I'm Carl Azus for CNN.